Yep. Welcome everyone. Today is April 20th, 2022, and this is another office hours of Cluster API provider. Bring your own host. We abide by the CNCF code of conduct, and yeah, please use raise hand feature of Zoom to ask or discuss anything. I guess we are good to go. Let's get started. So please add your names in attending section if not already. And if you have something to talk about, please add that in the agenda section. I guess we don't have any new folks today, so we will skip welcoming new folks section and directly jump in the agenda part. So Anusha, would you like to start first to talk about this topic?
Yes. Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Are you all seeing the browser? Okay, thank you. Okay, so the first item I have is limit BYOhost agent from using admin credentials. So some context around this. So currently BYOH agent expects that we pass a kubeconfig to it so that it can reach out to the management cluster and register itself. And this kubeconfig has admin credentials of the management cluster. So we wanted to improve upon the security feature wherein if we can somehow limit the scope of this kubeconfig that we share with the site operator. So one of the ways that we've come up with is, so we've created a feature request issue for this, and we'll be adding more issues to implement this particular feature. But let's go look at the sequence diagram. So our solution revolves around following a similar approach of what kubeadm bootstrap authentication does, wherein we have a bootstrap token, which is used for initial authentication, and then the normal sequence of like workflow can follow. So if you see here, initially we have a platform operator. So we will generate a bootstrap token. This should be of certain format, and then we'll create a secret in the kube system namespace. And from this secret, we'll be creating a bootstrap kubeconfig file. Now, this bootstrap kubeconfig file will have very limited access, as in it can watch or create only one custom resource, that is the certificate signing request, which we'll get to in a bit. So we'll create this bootstrap kubeconfig and share this bootstrap kubeconfig with the site operator. Now, the site operator, as usual, the steps follows, like you have to start a host agent on every host, but this time provide the bootstrap kubeconfig file. This is a new controller that we are introducing in the agent side, wherein this controller will watch and reconcile certificate signing request objects. It will, using this bootstrap kubeconfig, it will also create a host private key and CSR and generate a CSR request. So once this request is created, we have another new controller that we are introducing in the management cluster, which is BYO admission controller. So this controller will continuously watch for CSR requests and approve it. So here we have two workflows, which we've defined 9 and 9.1. The user can choose whether they want to manually inspect the CSR and then approve it, which we're calling the manual workflow. And then is the automated workflow wherein the controller can approve any of the CSR that is coming in. So if you are more confident about your management cluster and the controllers automatically approving the CSR, you can go for automatic approval. So once the CSR is approved, earlier in our earlier workflow, we had that the host agent reconciler, or even before getting to the host agent reconciler, once you start the agent itself, using the admin kubeconfig, the host would get registered in the management cluster. But now we already have a BYO host controller in the management cluster. So once the CSR is approved, the BYO host controller will create corresponding CRD. Now, almost at the same time, that is, this is not necessarily steps 10 and 11, but this can happen at the same time. As in when the CSR is approved, the Bootstrap Authenticator controller creates a new kubeconfig file now, because the Bootstrap kubeconfig cannot be used by the agent reconciler because of its limited access. but now a new kubeconfig will be created that can be used by the agent reconciler to do rest of the things that it already does today. So the major change that we are introducing is this concept of Bootstrap kubeconfig file and 2 new controllers to manage this CSR and creating of hosts. In addition to this, we will also have certain webhooks that is for yeah. So for these secrets or this Bootstrap token that is created by default has TTL of 1 hour. We want to provide some configuration mechanism wherein the user can override this TTL value. So we have a defaulting webhook for that. And then a validation webhook to determine whether the Bootstrap token is, the format is correct or not. Since 1 to 3 steps are manual here, there is scope for automation and different users can choose different ways to automate this. So just to be sure different kinds of automations are validated, we will write a validation webhook to determine the correctness of the secret that is generated. And then we need another dynamic admission webhook. This is because whenever a host agent makes any request, this is to make sure a host agent is not trying to modify the CRD of another host. So this webhook is just to make the BY host sure that they're performing CRUD operations on their own CRD. And then we're introducing a new cluster role and cluster role binding. This is for the CSRs to be created. The CSRs that are created will be following this role and cluster role binding. So these are all the new components which we'll implement as part of this feature request. That's all I have. Yes, Mayur.
Yeah, so this new component which is running on customer host, Bootstrap Authenticator, it will be part of BioH host itself, that binary?
Yes, it's part of the same binary.
Okay.
It's just a new controller along with the agent reconcile. Yes.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Another question?
Yeah, if no questions, we can move to the next topic, which again, Anusha has raised.
Then you should share your screen.
Let me share my screen.
So this is about the next couple of office hours. So we do have an internal conference coming up at VMware, which is 2 weeks from now. And then the 2 weeks after that is KubeCon. So I'm assuming most of the folks will be busy in either or both conferences. So probably our next BYH office hours will be, I don't know, May end, I guess, after KubeCon. So yeah, if anybody is coming to KubeCon, hit us up. And also Richard and I have a talk on how to write your own cluster API provider. So if you're around, like, yeah, do drop into the conference hall. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Shivani, next is cluster class support in BYH.
Yeah. So basically, I'm working on adding the cluster class support in BYH. This is just a call out here. So Anusha created one upstream feature request for the same, and I will add more like subtasks in that parent issue itself, and we'll start working on that. So if anyone wants to know like how we want to proceed or any wants to discuss on that, I'm open for it.
Okay, do you want to share your screen and explain it a bit, or?
I'm like adding it in the chat, the parent issue that Anusha created. Maybe I'll add the one pager if required in the parent issue itself.
We could just create, I think, tracking issues out of the one pager. Okay. So out of all the tasks, do you think is it possible to have some good first issues, or like so that we can invite more contributions from the community?
Yeah, initial tasks, I think we can do that because it's replacing the one of the issue is like replacing the existing cluster template. So like we have hard coded few values like namespace and some labels. So we could like make it custom. And I think that could be a good first issue if you want.
Okay. Okay. I think, I mean, it's up to you. So first of all, thank you for working on this, adding cluster class support. So if you think there could be any good first issues and they're not like complete blockers for this feature to be implemented, I think it's like good to wait and see if anybody is interested in like picking it up and contributing.
Okay, yeah, I take this point and I'll add if I find anything. Yeah, Sachin.
Yes.
I'm not familiar with what cluster class is, so can you give a quick brief of what it is, what's its use, utility, and all?
Okay, so basically in CAPI, that like cluster API lifecycle, they introduce a new feature called cluster class. So you can like briefly, if I tell you, so it is like one template where you mention all kind of, where you mention basically how your cluster should look like. So currently what happens when we create the cluster, like we mention multiple things like Kubedium control plane, about the machines and machine template, config, everything. And if you want to create multiple clusters, then you added the same YAML and create a copy and then edit some, then made some changes. Suppose you want to create two clusters, one with previous Kubernetes release version and one with the recent one. For that, currently what you have to do is you need to create two different YAMLs and apply it, then it will create. And when you apply that YAML, it creates multiple components. So if you see in the output, like it says cluster is created, cube, like ADM config is created, the template is created. You see 5 things have been configured when you apply any YAML. But with cluster class, to just define one basic template. Suppose I say I have one cluster with previous release, one with latest release. So I define the template in the cluster class, and I can reuse it whenever I want in future to create the clusters with the previous versions. So maybe it make more clear if I go through the like demo kind of thing. And if you want, like maybe we can plan in next office hours, then I think it makes more sense.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll plan a demo maybe in coming office hours.
Like, thanks.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Do you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
It's,
cool.
yeah.
Okay, so next I wanted to talk about this new feature that we are introducing to like reduce the day to operations for upgrading host agents whenever there are like support for new Kubernetes releases or maybe support for new platforms, operating systems or architectures. So, yes, so just to provide a bit of context, so in the current implementation of BOH host agent, so it also includes some smarts to like download and install all the Kubernetes dependencies that are required for KubeADM to provision or do node bootstrapping. And what does this mean is like whenever we are supporting new Kubernetes versions or we have to support new operating systems or operating system versions, then we have to upgrade host agent every time, and that is like that makes day2 operations a bit of complex. And if a customer or a user, they're maintaining like a fleet of servers, then like it is a lot of work that they have to do. So what we have thought, how we wanted to reduce these operational work is, so we wanted to move all this installation logic from the BOH host agent, and we wanted to introduce another controller that will have this installation logic, so that whenever we have to support new Kubernetes versions or platforms, we only have to upgrade the BOH provider in the management cluster, and we don't have to touch the host agent that are running on the servers. So that is the general idea, and this is the same pattern that KubeADM Bootstrap controller is using to create Bootstrap secrets, and the same way we will create installation secrets that will be then propagated to host, and the host agent will use that installation secret to download and install the bundle. Now, maybe to explain it a bit more, I will use this sequence diagram to make you help understand how we are going to achieve this. So if you see, we are introducing one new controller, that is BYO installer, and we are introducing one CRD, that is installer config. And the registration of BYO host, there are no changes in this process, but we have to like look in detail is generate installation secret. So BYO installer controller, it will watch BYO machine CRDs, and it will also watch the installer config CRDs. And whenever it finds a new BYO machine with installation secret not available reason on one of the condition, that is BYO host ready, so it will get some of the information from BYO machine, like the operating system architecture and Kubernetes version of the attached BYO host, and some of the information it will get from the installer config, like the bundle repo, that is the OCA registry where our bundles are hosted or published, and the bundle type. So using all this information, it will create the installation secret for that specific machine, and it will patch that installation secret on the installer config that is pointed by that BYO machine CRD. And it will also patch the status for that installer config as ready. After this is done, BYO machine controller will receive this event, and once it finds that installer config status is ready, it will patch the installation secret and to the BYO host. And I guess the next step is like the host agent reconciler. Whenever it finds that okay, installation secret is available to that specific CR, so it will decode, parse, and execute that installation secret. So now the installation logic, it is not with the host agent, but it will be created by the BYO installer, and then it will be propagated from BYO machine to BYO host, so that it can use and download the Kubernetes bits. So that is like a very high level overview of how we are going to achieve this and reduce the upgrades for BYO host agent whenever there are like new Kubernetes releases or newer platforms that BYO will support. Any queries? Yeah, Sachin.
So just to clarify, like the secret will have the logic to how to install, all the information of how to install this particular business, right?
Yes. So installation secret, it will hold a bash script that will have the installation logic for that particular host platform and that particular Kubernetes version.
Okay.
Any other questions? Or Anusha, do you want to add something?
No, and it will have an installation secret also, by the way, like both. Even though we are just calling it installer config.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Amjad covered like really well. Apart from that, I think this model is powerful in the sense if somebody else wants to use BYOH to install Kubernetes on the platform that we don't support today, like maybe CentOS or like any other platform that you want, or any other kind of Kubernetes, like it could be like if you want to install MicroK8s or Minikube or anything, so you could write your own controllers and CRDs, and BYOH will still be able to install that for you. But with current model, you have to come and change the installer code, have your own version of host agent, so which might become unmaintainable at some point. Yeah.
Yep. So I guess that's all for this topic, and I guess all the agenda items are covered. Anything else anyone wants to like talk about? Okay, then I guess we can close the call. Yeah, and see you in the next office hours.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.